Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Well, join me now for part 2 of my conversation with President and CEO of the New England Air Museum, Stephanie Abrams. Now that we know a little about you, tell us about the museum before you take me around.
I can't wait to take you around. I can't. New England Air Museum is, we believe, and we're told, it's the 7th largest collection of aircraft in the country. We are bringing the museum into this century with a lot of the video that I was talking about before. Okay, so when you first walk in, we have 3 huge hangars. The first hangar is our military hangar. We have an enormous sky crane, which one of our board members actually flew. And so we have military aircraft. We also have a flight simulator, which I'm going to introduce you to up close and personal. It's an F-18, like Top Gun.
Yes!
And I haven't landed on the aircraft carrier yet, but you can. And I get stories all the time from visitors. Yeah, I was here one weekend for an event, and a gentleman came up to me and he said, hey, I flew that in Vietnam.
Wow.
So I said, hey, you mind if we do a little interview? And so did a blog about him that night.
Wow.
The stories I hear from our visitors are incredible. You leave that hangar and you walk through one of our new exhibits, which is New England Women in Aviation. And that starts from the earliest aviators like Ruth Law. Where you see these pictures, she straps herself into this contraption and flew out of Chicago in winter. And she broke distance records for all pilots. She broke flight records for the longest an American had ever flown, not just men or women. Then you go through the Amelia Earharts and then into the WASPs, who are incredible. They flew during World War II. They delivered the B-29s to the guys because for a while in the beginning there were engine problems with it and some of the men were afraid of it, so they decided to have the women deliver it so the guys would think, if a woman can do that, I can do it. And then it goes up through the women who finally start to have leadership roles in the military and to be airline pilots for commercial aircraft. And then finally, the last alcove is the women who are creating the future of aerospace. Dr. Davin Newman from MIT has created the suit that they'll probably use on Mars. It's called the biosuit, and that's an augmented reality experience. It takes your picture, you see yourself in the suit while she's hopping around and saying, this is the biosuit, and tells you what it's all about, and about the astronauts. Leave that, then there is another exhibit, which we opened over the last 2 years. It's on the Polish squadron. It's Kosciuszko Squadron 303. They fought in the Battle of Britain. When they showed up, the Brits thought, who's this ragtag team with these inferior aircraft?
Right.
But they had these tactics. They flew with incredible skill. And we have a digital kiosk in there. We have video in there so you can learn about their stories. Most historians believe that the Battle of Britain would have gone the other way without these unsung Polish heroes. So then you walk into, I guess they're all my favorite hangars. Civil is one of my favorite hangars. The civilian hangar has many one-of-a-kind aircraft. It has an enormous aircraft that you're going to see. It's called a flying boat. It's a Sikorsky aircraft, part of the genius of Igor Sikorsky. It takes off and lands in water. It was created for the luxurious days for wealthy people. It was the first intercontinental aircraft. But during the war, it was pressed into service because the runways overseas were not long enough, and this takes off and lands in water. We have an Electra, which is 2 tail numbers off of Amelia Earhart's sister aircraft. We have, I was going to make you guess what it is, but now I'm going to give it away first. We have the bottom of a blimp. It's called a control car. Yeah. And it's perfectly restored to every detail. And I have to take a moment here to say we have 150 volunteers, docents in restoration. Our restoration volunteers, I say this with great affection, they're obsessed.
Wow.
When you see the detail to which they take what looked like something that came from a junkyard and turn it into something that looks like it came off a production line, another simulator, which flies almost every aircraft in our collection. Then you pass the Sikorsky exhibit, which is the oldest exhibit in the museum. It takes up kind of a 1/4 of the hangar, and that's next up. We're going to completely redo that because Sikorsky, just as it was started by someone who literally intuited the future, he was always a step ahead. He truly pure genius. His company continues that legacy because Sikorsky is now very future focused. They're creating autonomous flight aircraft that it's not controlled by something on the ground. There are AI algorithms, these aircraft fly themselves. So on the battlefield, a doctor who doesn't know how to fly can get into an aircraft and be taken to the people who need him. Also electric-powered VTOL, commuter flight. So it's going to change the way we live. Aviation changed the way we live, and it continues to do so. 2 more quick things, then we go through Kidsport, which is being redone. We just got a wonderful grant. But then the most incredible hangar is the B-29 Superfortress hangar. Not just because my dad was a crew chief. The B-29 Superfortress is enormous, and it fills a hangar. And then there are other aircraft from that theater. This is all World War II. But it's also where our newest and most expansive exhibit is. It's the most ambitious that we've done. And it's on the Tuskegee Airmen, their untold stories. Putting this together was truly, Jerry, life-altering for me because what makes it different than other museums is they talk about the war record and what they accomplished. We actually told the stories through the surviving airmen and their families and their grandchildren. And so you walk in their shoes and you find out, we have a theater. I leaned on my television documentary skills and worked with my production partner. We have a theater which gives an overview, and there are beautiful, there's a kiosk, but there's also artifacts from Lem Custis, who's a local hero. He was one of the original airmen. He was also the first African-American police officer in Hartford. But the videos, there's one wall on what it was like to be African-American pre-World War II. Still Jim Crow laws. Even on the way to Tuskegee, I mean, these men had a fight to get in. I mean, they were extraordinary to begin with. A lot of them already had some college education, which was unusual then for someone of color. But they get on this train to go to Tuskegee. They cross over an invisible line called the Mason-Dixon line and get pulled off the train and put into the Jim Crow car. Then beyond that, you get to find out what it was like during their service, how difficult the training was. They were facing abject racism and discrimination. They were fighting 2 wars, one along with our allies to protect our freedom, and the other against racism and discrimination from a country that they were fighting for. Then also there's another alcove about what it was like to be in battle, which was incredible because they were so gifted. They had red tails. Right, so and their job was to escort the bombers, which sounds like, oh, I'm just going to fly along. It's not. Escorting the bombers meant you protect the bomber from enemy aircraft. And we've interviewed pilots from the bombers who were in the bombers who said when they looked out and they saw red tails, they knew they had a chance of coming home. And then the last alcove is about what it was like post-war. Some were able to go to law school, get other careers, but those who wanted to fly commercially got letters from the airline saying, regardless of your record, we do not hire Negroes. We've seen the letters. So the exhibit is inspirational. Sometimes it's heartbreaking, but it's inspirational in the sense that they used focus and excellence and determination, and they felt like this is my country too. And our hope, when people go through this, especially young people, is that they can understand, because the Tuskegee Airmen set the groundwork for the peaceful civil rights movement of the 60s, that they changed the world, and if we keep their legacy alive, they continue to do so.
You have just enriched us with a lot of great information.
Thank you. I would love for everyone who's listening to please come see the exhibit. When I walk by there and the theater is full and I see the emotional reaction from the visitors, it just washes over me. I get teary. Yeah. You present very well. You're great for this museum. Who was the person that sought you out again? What was his name? His name was Bill Gonnett. He's a senior vice president for Barnes Aerospace, and he was a client of mine. I did video for him. I think when I presented to the entire board, I think that they saw my passion. I love aerospace, but I also love telling stories, and this place has such significant stories. Again, aviation changed the way that we live. It continues to do so because there's another step change happening between, it's no longer just NASA. So now it's, civilian space travel, electric-powered VTOL, which are vertical flights, electric-powered vertical flight. There are so many stories to tell, and they're important.
All right. And with that, shall we walk?
Yes, let's walk.
All right. And you have to wait till next week for that walk. And boy, did we walk. If you'd like more information about what you heard today, call WIHS 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily of those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs.